Hey, hello. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Sean Campos, and I'm going to be presenting on how to incorporate SMART methodology into your organization's equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts. Um, so I am going to. I have four screens up. I'm sorry, everyone. um, get back to my actual presentation. There we go.
do. I'm not want
Okay.
to do. I might have
So
to do it because it's
I'd like to welcome everyone and introduce myself. I'm Sean Campos. I consider myself a new professional. I graduated from Valdosta State University in December of last year with my MLIS. I'm an advocate for EDI and disability rights, and I was recently able to get certified in equity, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace thanks to a program offered by the University of South Florida. I work as a library technical assistant for Georgia State University's library in the digital projects department, and we're in Atlanta, Georgia, originally the land of the Muskogee Nation. I would like to acknowledge that I'm presenting and working on land that was stolen from the Muskogee Creek Nation. Their ancestors created homes and a foundation to build upon for them in Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. They were forcefully removed from their homes as a result of the Indian Removal Act, murdered while attempting to be neutral during the American Civil War, and had even more of their land stolen after the Civil War for Reconstruction. I'd like us to take a moment to think about the atrocities that were perpetrated against the Muskogee Nation. Now, I would like for everyone to join me in celebrating the resiliency, courage, and drive of the Muskogee Nation. After all the wrongs committed against these folks, they rebuilt and restructured their government, pushed back really hard against the next attempt at stealing from them, and became a sovereign nation. If that's not inspiring, I don't know what is. I'm going to drop some links in the chat for everyone to grab if they so choose. One is a tool that can help you figure out what tribal land you're on. The other is a link to the Muskogee Nation's website and a guide to creating a land acknowledgement. These links are also in the resource guide that accompanies this presentation. So give me 1 second. And I'm sorry about all the alerts. That's insane. Great. Okay. And so those are there for everybody. And I'm going to move forward. Okay, so before we jump in, I have a few housekeeping items I'd like to share with everyone. This presentation is fully captioned and a transcript of it will be made available to all attendees. It's also accompanied by a digital resource guide that I will include the transcripts to in the same resource guide. I want you all to know that all questions are worth asking. This is a safe space. We're not here to judge, just to learn, and occasionally hype each other up. I'm not offended by any sidebars because I know we all have thoughts. So please feel free to have conversations among yourselves about concepts that pop up or alternatives to ideas. I'm not an expert, and I'm trying to get some learning in too. So go on. Also, this is a whole self event. I'm bringing all of me because I'm more productive when I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not. And I feel like that's most folks. So I just want to provide you all with a genuine experience. And I want to make sure that if you feel comfortable, you bring all of yourselves today as well. And last but definitely not least, there are various forms of EDI efforts. This is an ongoing conversation in our profession and others, and there are a lot of feelings. Just wanted to get that out there before I continue. So why is everyone talking about EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion? There are a lot of reasons. Current events like the uptick in discrimination and racist acts against members of the Asian community, the murder and systemic silencing of African Americans in the US by the justice system, the lack of transparency in employment practices in our profession, and others. The list could go on and on, unfortunately. There are also institutions trying to get in on the action to increase employee satisfaction, which is valid. I like being happy, and I hope you all do too. There's also productivity. I mentioned in my last slide that we were all trying to be our whole selves during today for several reasons. One was that a study that I had a chance to get, sorry, brain, a long day. One was a study that was conducted by CoQual, and I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat as well. It stated that more than 3 out of 4 Latinx employees expend energy repressing parts of their personas in the workplace. That was me as well, and you may not realize it, but it could be you or someone you're working with. And there's value in showing up and being able to present as yourself at work. I'm going to grab this link really quickly while I'm thinking about it. Oh no, I've scrolled everywhere but the link. And this should take you to an infographic and provide you with a little bit more information on that study. All right, pushing forward. So the last one is actually my favorite. It's basically people are talking about EDI because they want to be decent, at minimum, human beings. I personally like being a good human. It makes me feel good. There's science to that, but that's for later. So I'm going to get to the next couple of slides and actually get into the meat of what we're going to be discussing today. So what does EDI in the workplace look like? Are you wondering that yourselves? Because for a while I was, and I really didn't have anything to go off of except for stock photos, the cheesy ones with everyone smiling, and it's like, oh, everyone's getting along. So here's what I've gathered from some of the research that I've done. And just some observations I've made. EDI in the workplace looks like listening to one another during conversations without the sole intention of waiting to say what you're thinking. You can hold off on that and really take in what your teammate is saying. If you're like me, you don't always remember everything. And so I often tell people that are speaking to me, hey, my brain's a little different. I'm going to grab my notepad, tablet, etc., to take notes while we discuss this so that they know I'm not trying to multitask. I'm actually really trying to get a feel for what they're saying. The next one is similar, but focuses on your team as a whole. If you're inviting everyone to the table, probably is a good idea to listen to everyone. What's the point of asking the support staff to come to team meetings if their voices aren't being heard? If you're having team meetings and the whole team isn't contributing in ideas, you may need to take some time to understand why. Often, if you notice that ideas aren't flowing at your meetings, it could be because folks aren't comfortable expressing their opinions or feel that they will not be considered. They could also just be getting a feel for what's happening, me sometimes, but a check-in never hurts. This brings me to leadership styles. If you have direct reports, your job is not only to manage them, it's to provide them with guidance, opportunities for growth and support. This goes for anyone, regardless of whether or not they're in a supervisory position. And it doesn't always have to be your direct report that you're supporting. If you have teammates that are trying to grow professionally and you can offer support, do it. Right now, I'm grateful to have the backing of the senior staff in my department and others supporting my goals. They provide me with study materials, professional opportunities, and include me in decision-making processes because they know my goals and they want to support them. And believe it or not, most of these folks aren't even in my department, but they reach out and they help just because they can. They also provide me with constructive feedback and validate and champion my ideas, which is my next point. You don't always have to hype up an idea, but providing useful feedback and support makes a big difference in how folks feel about expressing themselves, and it's a really good trust builder. So in the title slide, you may have noticed that the word SMART is capitalized. It's an acronym. I was going to play a brief video for you, but alas, the technology gods did not favor me today. So instead, you're going to get me kind of flailing around trying to explain the basics of SMART goals. If you're interested in viewing this video in your own time, I have all the links. I'm going to drop the link for you in the chat. And hopefully, if my attempt at an explanation doesn't work for you, this person's will. 1 second. Going back and forth is interesting here. Okay, so that's in there for everyone. And no, Cletus. Okay. All right, so Basically, the video gives you an overview of SMART methodology. It's also, ooh, that was unintentional. Get back to where we were. It's also available in the resource guide that I'm providing. So there's that. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. These are all, I'm so sorry. 1 second. Sorry, everybody. Dog break. Get back to where I was. So we already got what SMART stands for. These are all preferred properties of the goals you set when using this method of goal setting and tracking. I'll get into these a little bit more in the next few slides. The main point is that your plan to incorporate EDI into your workplace, it can be in your plan to incorporate equity, diversity, and inclusion best practices in your workspace. It could be beneficial to use this type of goal setting methodology. So although our overall goal is to have a more equitable, diverse, and space, we have to focus on how we want to accomplish that if we want to implement SMART goal methodology. And I'm going to move over to the next slide. So the point of all this is to say we're here today to combine two aspects of our profession, making things happen and collaborating effectively with folks who want to be a part of making things happen. When we combine SMART goal methodology and our EDI efforts, we unlock the potential to make our spaces more equitable, diverse, and inclusive ones for ourselves and our communities. So there's an asterisk here, and it's there to drive home the fact that this is something that takes effort, conviction, and sincerity. You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to make a sincere effort to make change and want it. You also must get over your perfectionism. It's rampant in this profession, and we have to sit with ourselves and acknowledge that we're not perfect. Although we are an amazing group of talented and resourceful people, we still have room to grow. So how do we do this? There are 6 points here, but don't be fooled. They come in pairs. I separated them because they're all important in their own right. This is going to require planning, and planning involves like your team. So hopefully everyone knew that, obvious thing. We'll need everyone's help in making this a reality. Implementing our plan will require checking in and reassessing our results. Did we succeed? Is there something that we can improve on? If so, do we need to regroup? This is just a very brief overview of what this type of work entails. Get this back where it belongs. Okay, so with planning, we have to think about what we want to accomplish. In this case, our goal is to make our team feel more comfortable expressing themselves and sharing ideas. We've noticed that there's a lack of participation, and we figure this may help with that. Then we move on to why it's important. For this, we'll say it's important because we're in an idea rut. We need to get some fresh input. And we believe everyone on the team should be involved, but want to narrow it down to 5 to 10 people so that there can be a feasible way to account for everything. And we can meet up virtually on a set schedule and have working meetings when possible. This is just a run through of what the planning process kind of looks like for this specific situation. And in this case, the most essential thing is a platform to host our online meetings and other project management software. The only restrictions we can think of for this goal is the potential for disinterest or having this project be considered a low priority. So let's look at our plans so far. Right now, the goal is I want my team to feel more comfortable expressing their opinions and sharing ideas. If we want to get more specific, which is the S in SMART, we'd say I want to create, to get more into the nitty gritty of it, we want to create an anonymous feedback system for our team so that they feel more comfortable sharing their ideas and expressing themselves. And so the plan will be, I'll include my team in this process during our meetings in the conference room. We'll need specific software, and we may encounter some pushback or disinterest from some team members. I'm gonna move to the next slide. Cool. So we've started the planning process and decided that we'd like to include teammates who would be interested in this type of work. We put a call out for volunteers, and bam, we got a few over our target and chose 10 from various departments based on their responses to the call. Now we have to schedule our first meeting and delegate some tasks to one another. Here's where we get some of the information needed to make sure our goal is measurable and achievable. And I guess when we think of measurable, we think we can have the system up and running in 4 months with consistent meetings and check-ins. Is this achievable? This process will help us all have a better understanding of a new software system and be a little challenging for us to learn. And we'll need to get some training on how to use the software that could take us a month or two to complete. But after, there's a typo, but after these courses, everyone involved should have the basic skills needed to edit the form we're creating. So it is an achievable goal. Let's see. So I think I hopped a slide. Sorry, everybody. Go back. So let's see. Whether or not your goal is relevant plays a key part in how it can be perceived by your organization's leadership. If the goal doesn't necessarily tie in with the institutions, it can be misinterpreted as a pet or a low priority project, as I said before. So we have to ask ourselves if this matters to the organization, and if we feel like we're good and that this is something that ties in what we're already trying to do and it's a good time for it, we can go on to making sure that it's time bound. As a team or in smaller groups, you can create timelines that guide you in what should be done, at what times and by who. In this specific scenario, this goal ties into the organization's goal of being more inclusive and innovative. This forum could provide employees with a means to express their opinions and ideas without fear of retaliation or being put on the spot. It could also solicit new ideas that could be applied to our services. As far as being time bound, the timeline created will be based on the time we think this process will take and will include what needs to be accomplished, who is responsible for what, and key dates. So after the project or goal has been completed or accomplished, you've got some headway, you have to do a few final checks. In this situation, we have to think about, did we have to alter the timeline? That's okay. Was every related task completed that was on the timeline? Was it completed by the person it was supposed to be completed by? Do we need to do additional check-ins? Did you all, have a chance to review the work of your colleagues before putting your work forward for review by whoever has to review it or releasing it to whomever it's supposed to be released to? At this point, it's just time to get the word out. So depending on what you've been working on, you may need to create a marketing plan. This may require that you consult with your organization's marketing and branding department, or if you manage your own communications, you may be able to develop a social media plan or an internal communications distribution method. I really hope I'm not talking too fast. I apologize. After about 2 weeks, I like to check in on things. In this case, the team would need to check to see if any feedback has been submitted in the form they've created. Depending on whether there are any responses and how many, they may decide they need to regroup to develop a new plan of action for promoting the use of the form. So I have the pleasure of being a part of something really special, and I'm going to use the process we use for that as a type of case study. So this is the goal of a professional organization's leadership. To the left of this slide, there's a list of the things the organization wants to accomplish. To the right, you'll see them in a very familiar format, last couple of slides. So the organization wants to better understand its membership's opinions on how equitable, diverse, and inclusive it is. It wants to be more inclusive and wants to develop programming to encourage communication about the topic. It wants to involve members in this effort. It wants to conduct the process online, and it wants to provide all available resources to this effort. The organization expects to encounter some timeline shifts. So the simplified goal is this organization wants to increase its EDI efforts and be more welcoming and helpful to its members and potential members. Getting into specifics, we see that the organization wants to find a way to get its members to express their opinions on its EDI efforts and their programming preferences so that they can apply this information to their efforts. Then we see that they plan to create a task force made of members that can address this need. They also intend to provide the task force with the resources needed to accomplish this goal. Yes. So Here's a brief timeline of the organization's activities to the left. It provides a brief overview of what the process of planning was like. Honestly, the process is the task force is led by two co-chairs. They evenly split responsibility and facilitate meetings. That's how they're taking that responsibility and delegating it. If we get into specifics, again, the S in SMART, we want to find a way to get its members to express their opinions. Essentially, it's the same as the example I gave before. I'm going to scoot forward because this is adding no value, but this will. So the result of this work so far are listed here. The Georgia Library Association's Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, which I'm on as one of the co-chairs, was able to successfully create and distribute a survey designed to solicit the opinions of library workers and provide them with, I can never say this word, your privacy. You're anonymous. No one knows who you are, and you can be free to do what you want. For the most part. A team of 12 people worked for 9 months to review literature and create a way for the voices of library workers in the state of Georgia to be heard by leaders in our field and applied to the standards and values of the organization. There was collaboration with several other organizations and task forces, and our timeline was altered twice, but I wasn't too surprised by this since nothing's perfect and there were so many moving parts and changing views along the way. In distributing our survey, we wanted to ensure that it was understood to be all library workers within the state of Georgia, not just members of the Georgia Library Association. We created a distribution plan and consulted with branding and marketing so that we didn't duplicate efforts or blow up anyone's email. We also shared the survey on various listservs and created check-in dates to do the same so that we could encourage as many people as possible to respond before the closing date. We've also cleverly inserted plugs into the work and research that we do in our non-task force lives. This is one, hello. And then we released it. So some of you may have seen the email or a posting about 2 weeks ago. Since it's been released, we've been checking in frequently to see how many responses we have. We want more, and so we'll likely reassess and do another round of distribution. Because the survey is ongoing, I'm unable to report its findings, but I'm hoping we could use the responses to make some positive changes in the ways that libraries and information centers within the state of Georgia feel to library workers and the people that use them. The QR code in this slide is live, and you are more than welcome to get a shot of it before I move on. I'm going to do a 5-second countdown, and then I am going to move on. I can't see the chat. I apologize. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. If you're interested in learning more about the Georgia Library Association or the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, you can visit the Georgia Library Association's website or check out the task force's webpage on the site. You can also take a podcast break and check out my co-chair and I on Clayton County Library System's podcast, Biblio Burrito. We're featured on episode 5, which is titled Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Georgia Libraries. And I do want to get you all some of these links, but if you have any questions, I'm going to return to the chat in a little bit. And I just wanted to make sure I got all of this. Okay, so thank you all so much for your interest in applying SMART methodology to your goals. For more information about this and the other things covered in this presentation, please check out the resource guide I've created at this link. I am going to share the link right now. So many moving parts. I apologize, everybody. Okay, so. Well, thanks, Allison. My dogs are everywhere. But yeah, for more information about this and the other things covered in this presentation, check out the resource guide at the link. It'll take you to the EDI to Smart Way resource guide, which is probably evident in the last thing that I said. If you have any questions, I can answer them right now because I've sped through this presentation. And if you can't think of one now, but you have one later, feel free to contact me by email or connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank everyone who's still here. And were there any questions? No? I appreciate all of the understanding for the crazy dog situation, though. I'm recovering from food poisoning, so I had to come home and do this. It's a lot. um, if there are no questions, thank everybody for joining us. And I really hope you got something from this, even though I sped through it like the nervous wreck that I am right now.